What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be taking a look at Master Duel and what I am playing. So a few people have asked me, like, what am I playing, what am I working on, building, so on and so forth, and kind of like my thoughts on the game as a whole. I've been waiting to make a video for the ban list, which we're like 9 to 10 days past the date that it's supposed to drop at the time I'm recording this. So I'm really not sure what's going on with that. I don't know if they're waiting to garner reaction to the Master Duel list, or if they're waiting to establish some changes. I mean, I've seen some speculation that maybe Max C is going to come back, and that they're trying to, plan things about where to put it, where to slot it, whatever. I don't really buy into any of that hype, just because I think that if a card like that is going to come back, they've already made that choice, and I think that when it comes to things they're going to reprint, that most of the decisions for any sets that are coming out in the next 2 to 3 months have probably already been finalized and are, going through the printing process, if you will. So I don't know what the plan is there. I don't know what the delay is. I really have hope that the ban list that we get will be something akin to what we have here in Master Duel, and maybe that's a topic for its own video, because I think the ban list is really fun. I don't think it's perfect, but I do think having access to cards like Max C, which I've talked about on the channel ad nauseum, you have people that love it, you have people that hate it. There really is no middle ground. People are pretty much either very much against it because they play combo and can't handle the fact that they'd have to think about their plays for more than 2 minutes, and you have people that, like myself, who are very big supporters of it. Well, acknowledging that the card does have balance issues, I do think that Max C does allow other decks a chance to compete and does sort of slow the game down. Yes, combo decks can play it, and yes, those dominant decks still have a chance to utilize it, but it gives your deck, whether that's something that's a rogue tier or otherwise, a chance to have more representation, and in my opinion, that's a good thing for diversity of the game. Now, for the actual deck that I'm playing personally, currently playing Sky Striker, and it's funny because in real life for quite a while I was not a huge fan of this deck. I didn't really find it fun to play. I thought it was kind of redundant, and honestly, in like 2018, Striker was really dominant for a long time. They continued to basically dodge the ban list, continued to make up such a large portion of the top cut that it just wasn't fun. But I think there's two reasons that I'm intrigued by this here, because I think the deck now is very clearly a competitive deck that is not like an outright tier 0, even tier 1 deck. It's probably closer to tier 1.5. I know it's seen representation in real life with the Destiny Hero package and artifact stuff. Obviously, we don't have access to all of that here. We do have Fusion Destiny, but there's no Phoenix Enforcer, so until that comes, the build as a whole looks a bit different. And of course, using this list, which is, representative of the OCG's list, Engage is actually at 2, as is Multi-Roll at 3, but Kagari is at 1. So there are some trade-offs that we get. I do think the deck functions really well as a whole with the things that we have access to. So I'm going to go through the deck basically pretty quick. I don't want to have the cursor on screen moving around and throwing everybody off too long, but it's pretty straightforward, and if you're interested in building a deck, I did not spend any real money to build this. This was all done through in-game currency, and I was able to craft pretty much everything. I do have Forbidden Droplets and a few other cards as well that I did end up pulling, but I'm not, they're not really relevant at this particular moment in time. So if you're just interested for a deck list, I do think this is pretty straightforward. I'm currently in Plat 4. I just haven't played too much in the past couple of days with this in Ranked. I've just been sort of working on finishing the solo stuff. And going back and forth. I had a few tough losses in Plat against Drytron, which seems to be one of the tougher things to this deck. If you don't open Skullmeister, it's really difficult to get that going. But overall, I do think it's really enjoyable. So I'll quickly go through it. It's got double copies of Effect Veiler, triple Max C, and triple Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring as the primary hand traps. Now, obviously, you see Skullmeister there. Skullmeister is definitely interchangeable if you want to play something like Ghost Bell or Dimension Shifter instead. I like Meister because he is 1700, so in some scenarios, if you do need to summon and poke for damage, you're typically playing just 1 to 2 monsters on the field max at a time, and having access to something like that is both good to counter decks like Drytron, which is a big problem for this deck, and also good because, like I said, it's just that ability to attack over things in a rare scenario if you need it. Veiler is essential to the Hulk combo to go into Access Code Talker, and it's just a really good card in general. Max C, as you know, is really solid. It does balance quite a bit for you in terms of being able to regenerate some resources, which Striker's never had a problem with, so we'll take those extra resources where we can get them. And that pretty much makes out that lineup. These numbers are all sort of modifiable, interchangeable. You can play Crossout Designator. I don't really think it's necessary in this deck specifically. You do have a decent variety of ways to counter things. I'm personally not a huge fan of forcing the card in there just because you're playing Max C. People might tell you otherwise, and that's fine. You can play with your comfort level, but I'm pretty happy with this hand trap lineup overall. I wanted to keep it at exactly 40. I would bump Ash Blossom up to 3 if I were to make some kind of a move like that to put it over 40, but with the Upstart Goblin package, it's not really worth. Triple copies of Ray and 1 Rose. Again, pretty standard stuff for Striker, whether in Master Duel or real life. Rose is good, but it's searchable, and you can recur it, and Ray is just infinitely more important. And that rounds out your monster lineup. Obviously, if you were playing the Destiny Hero stuff, you would play Celestial and Dasher, or Plasma and Celestial, whatever. But you're not doing that here because we do not have Phoenix Enforcer in the game yet. So that rounds out the monster lineup there, and then we move on to spells. So I am playing a copy of Monster Reborn. This is to revive Kagari because you only have the one. There's no way to cycle through your Kagaris, and that can be kind of tough, whereas having Monster Reborn at least gives you the ability to get a Kagari back. At one point I was playing Pot of Avarice. It does brick sometimes. It's not super hard to make it live, but more often than not, you're going to be able to use Monster Reborn easier than you are Pot of Avarice, so that was the logic behind going with that choice. Triple Upstart, it's really fun to be able to play this again, and it's obviously just great in this deck. You get spells in the grave, you cycle through the deck, and you thin, which is the same purpose that Rhoda and Terraforming serve. They are a bit costly in this game being Ultras, which is a bit unfortunate that you have to use your jewels on those, but I do think both are really strong for the purposes that they serve. So that's sort of your fill the grave quickly with spells package. Metal Foes Fusion, still really solid to send off of Zeke or Area 0. And you've got your double Foolish Burial Goods. I think some people are more akin to play just 1. I think 2 is pretty solid because 1, it just becomes so, you know, am I going to draw this? Am I not going to draw this? Whatever. Normally in real life Striker, I'm playing Triple Desires, but with Upstart at 3, it's not nearly as needed, and I don't want to play, you know, Desires with the current ratios that we have, so that's the rationale behind that choice. Also, Widow Anchor is only at 2 here, so you do have to make a few tougher calls in that regard. Double Engage, the card is broken, definitely should not be at 2, but here it is. Really good card, and obviously Kagari being at 1 is what balances that. In the TCG format, we certainly would not have both of those at 3 at the same time, because I do think it would just be insane consistency. 1 Afterburners, this is really good to out stuff, but it is recurable, so you don't need to go crazy with it. Popping a monster and a spell, really getting a bang for your buck with this is awesome, but just being able to out problematic monsters is good. Triple Lightning Storm is more of a personal choice, but especially with things like Vanities and Triple Skill Drain Legal, you are seeing that a lot in their competitive ladder. With things like Eldritch and Lightning Storm, is just really good to shut that off. You don't really have a sideboard because of the way that these are played, at least in Ranked. Maybe they'll add matches for events and stuff, I'm not really sure. But that's sort of my out to those problems. You could play Twin Twister, but I don't know why you would. Storm is just better. Double Area 0, this is just a really good card that does a lot of things. It's a multi-use, you know, take your opponent's monster with a Widow Anchor, send it to grave to get a free search. There's so many different things you can do here. And of course, multi-roll, I'm playing 2. This is actually at 3 in the format versus 1 here. It's an insane card, but 3 is a bit overkill. I think 2 is a really good number. That way, if your opponent does out it, you can still get another copy, and you don't have to worry about dead drawing it, because it can dead draw once your spells have been banished. 1 Chalice and 2 Widow Anchor. The Chalice is just to supplement that 3rd Widow Anchor. VFD is still running rampant here. You want to be able to get over that, and you want to be able to stop that tough negation as soon as possible. I was playing Droplet at one point. Having to send an extra card is not my favorite thing, so I thought this was a better package. 1 Chalice, 2 of those is pretty straightforward. 1 Hornet Drones and 1 Eagle Booster, both just different names, both serve different purposes. Double Shark Cannon, this is really good against Eldritch for obvious reasons, but just overall it's really solid. It's basically a searchable call by the grave. It doesn't negate, so yes, I understand it's not quite as good, but in this deck, for what you want it to do, it is pretty optimal. And then 1 Vanity's Emptiness, which is just a really fun card to have access to. I've always wanted this card to come back. I don't know that I necessarily think it's fair, but I do think it's good, and I'm interested to see as the ban list adapts whether or not this card will have any chance of seeing any real relevant play. So keep your eyes on Vanities. I'm curious to see where they go. And the extra deck, we have 1 Kagari, triple Shizuku, double Hayate, and a Kana. All straightforward, all pretty cheap except for the Kagari, but if you craft a super in that pack, you can pull these open pretty easy. Hulk, definitely needed, because Hulk, Celine, and Access Code is just basically your win condition combo in most cases. It's really powerful. I'm playing 2 Zeke because you don't have the extra Kagari, and sometimes you just need to have an extra Zeke to go into, have an extra Striker to go into if you take an opponent's monster and you want to link away. Nightmare Phoenix is occasional spell and trap out removal. Ningirsu is just your way of getting things off that can't be destroyed. And then, of course, Boral Sword is just another option. It's very rare that I go into it, but he is there and he is neat for that purpose. So, like I said, I've been playing Striker on here. I am in the process of building some other decks as well, including Wind Up, as you can see, and I will showcase some more decks as we go forward. But if you guys want to add me on Master Duel, I'm happy to play when I start streaming, doing that stuff. So there's the code if anyone's interested to add me on there. I will continue to make some other videos going forward, but right now the TCG just feels like it's at a stalemate with what's going on. And until we get the ban list and there's really more to dive into, I thought I'd at least come back with this video, talk about what I'm playing, and sort of hear from you guys. What are you playing in Master Duel? What's your experience been like so far? Are you fans of the game? Are you enjoying it as much as I am? You know, drop those comments down below. Let me know what you think Konami's going to do, what changes they might make, and so on and so forth. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.